fellow sadza eaters, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, vasinamalites, varikudya rice, nevasinama rights. Welcome to the special report. A day ago, the Standard newspaper interviewed Christopher Mutsvangwa. Now, the things that he said in his response prompted me to do a special report. For the first time since 2017, a senior ZANU-PF official has officially admitted to two things. Number one, that there is factionalism in ZANU-PF. Number two, that there is state capture in respect to the judiciary. Keep in mind that up until now, ZANU-PF has always maintained that the judiciary is 100% independent and that factionalism died in 2017. Now the question is, does Mutsvangwa's revelation change anything? No, of course not. If anything, Mutsvangwa simply confirmed what we already knew. But ukaona kangoma koririsa ziva kuti kapedyo kuparuka. When you see ZANU-PF factionalism spilling out into the public eye, best believe that something is about to give. Something is definitely about to give. It's giving disaster. It's giving suspensions. It's giving expulsions. But ZANU-PF factionalism doesn't just involve recalls, suspensions, and expulsions. No, ZANU-PF factionalism is different from your CCC MDC factionalism. ZANU-PF factionalism also involves guns, and we saw that in 2017. But speaking of expulsions and suspensions, Christopher Mutsvangwa is no stranger to that. His loose mouth, his unrestrained tongue, plus his sense of entitlement has gotten him into trouble on so many occasions. Mutsvangwa's sense of entitlement stems from two things. Number one, his liberation credentials. Number two, his involvement before and during the 2017 coup. Christopher Mutsvangwa feels like the so-called new dispensation owes him. Why? Well, in 2016, he was suspended from ZANU-PF and subsequently fired from government for standing up to Mugabe in support of Mnangagwa's faction, Lacoste, which was at the time fighting the G40 to succeed Mugabe. And when the Mnangagwa faction took over ZANU-PF via a military coup in 2017, Mutsvangwa was the de facto public relations manager of ED during that coup. After the coup, Zimbabwe held elections, but unfortunately, Christopher Mutsvangwa failed to win a parliamentary seat. He lost to Themba Muliswa in Norton. This made it hard for Mnangagwa to make him a cabinet minister because the constitution of Zimbabwe says that cabinet ministers must be MPs, even though the president can appoint up to 5 ministers outside parliament, chosen for their professional skills and competence. So initially, ED appointed Mutsvangwa as a cabinet minister responsible for information and publicity, but he later withdrew that appointment and made him his special advisor. But this special advisor thing didn't last for long. Mutsvangwa soon found himself completely out of government. Mnangagwa thought that appointing Monica Mutsvangwa as Minister of Information was going to appease Chris, but it didn't. Because Chris Mutsvangwa loves being in control. Even in ZANU-PF, he held the less influential role of Secretary for Science and Technology in the Politburo. What is the Politburo? Well, the Politburo is the task force, the administrative team of the Central Committee. You see, in ZANU-PF, the highest decision-making body is the Congress, but the highest decision-making body outside Congress is the Central Committee. The Central Committee is like the national executive of ZANU-PF. So, out of that national executive, which we are calling the Central Committee, ED appoints heads of departments to carry out the activities and functions of the party. So those heads of departments are what we call, or rather what they call, the Politburo. So Christopher Mutsvangwa was the head of the Science and Technology Department, but he hated it. He feels he is too important to lead departments like Science and Technology. He prefers departments that put him in the limelight. And so when ED reshuffled the Politburo in 2021, Mutsvangwa was given the Department of Information. This was a perfect appointment for Mutsvangwa, who loves the sound of his voice so much that he can talk for hours, gloating and boasting about his war exploits. When you hear him speak, you would think that he fought the armed struggle by himself. Even when he's talking about other comrades, other freedom fighters, he always somehow manages to make the issue about himself. If blowing your own trumpet was a person. In fact, Mutsvangwa doesn't just blow his own trumpet, no. He has a whole range of instruments, a consort of instruments, played by none other than himself, in self-praise. What a loose cannon. That's the reason why he's always getting fired from influential positions in government. After the 2023 elections, Mutsvangwa was appointed Minister of the War Vets, but it only took 6 months for ED to fire him for reasons that were never made public. For some of us, it wasn't a surprise at all. I think ED just got fed up with Mutsvangwa's entitlement. The man who wants to play John Rambo almost 50 years after the war. So now, let's take a look at the story that was carried out by the Standard newspaper. You see, Christopher Mutsvangwa's son, Neville, got arrested. Hollywood style. According to the Newsday, police had to cut the electric fence to his house, jumped over the Jura wall to gain access to his compound. And get this, they found him hiding behind a pile of rubbish. I'm not making this up. This is according to the Newsday. So, Mutsvangwa's son, Neville, is facing criminal charges of money laundering, illegally dealing in forex, and also contravening the Telecommunications Act after Starlink equipment was found in his house. But Christopher Mutsvangwa is rubbishing all of this. He says these are trumped up charges, politically motivated charges. Well, Mr. Mutsvangwa say, Job Scala, Jacob Ngarivume and Godfrey Stolle are saying, "Good morning, Mr. Mutsvangwa. Welcome to Zimbabwe." Mutsvangwa says that there are people in ZANU-PF who have organized against him. He says these people are quote-unquote Mafikizolos who joined the liberation struggle late from Tanzania. He calls himself the OG war vet because he joined the liberation struggle in Mozambique. But of course, the liberation struggle did not start in Mozambique. The properly organized guerrilla incursions into Rhodesia started when ZANU was still based in Zambia. So what is the OG war vet talking about? You see, that is what I meant. For Mutsvangwa, everything is connected to his liberation credentials. If you question his incompetence, he immediately starts gloating and boasting about liberating Zimbabwe as if he did it by himself. For crying out loud, Christopher Mutsvangwa joined the liberation struggle a few years before independence, and he was a junior soldier at that, yet he wants to lecture everyone regarding the armed struggle. Mr. Mutsvangwa, I think I speak on behalf of millions of Zimbabweans when I say we have had enough, sir. We've literally had enough. You are not the only war vet, you know. There are many other war vets, proper war vets, well-decorated war vets who don't go around gloating and boasting about their contribution in liberating Zimbabwe. War vets like Philip Valerius Vanda, Ambrose Mutiniri, Chinga Dube. You don't hear them going around boasting about what they did during the armed struggle. But you know, you have to preach your history. Do an all-night prayer preaching. Do a crusade about your contribution in liberating Zimbabwe. A night of wonder like Panganai Java, preaching about your war exploits. We have had enough, Mr. Mutsvangwa say. The self-imposed John Rambo of the liberation struggle went on to say that his enemies in ZANU-PF are abusing the state. He says there are two issues of abuse. One is the abuse of the stationery of the party to create fake statements. And the other one is the abuse of the state apparatus, including the judiciary. He says, quote unquote, they are trying to abuse the judiciary system, hoping that I can have an attitude against the state. The owner of the state is the president, but these are forces which are in between the third force. Well, Mr. Mutsvangwa say, let me remind you that the president is not the owner of the state. He is the head of state. The state has no owner. No one owns the state. But the question, of course, is why is the president allowing these people to abuse the judiciary? Because if the allegations of Mutsvangwa are true, then it's either these people have ED's blessing or ED has lost control. Because Mutsvangwa boasts about his close relationship with ED. So if Mutsvangwa is as close to ED as he claims, then why was he fired? And these people he alleges have captured the judiciary. What is ED doing about them? Because it's either ED is working with these people, or if he's not working with them, then he has lost control of certain aspects of government. And there's another rhetoric question that I must ask. This third force, which Mutsvangwa talks about, which he says has captured the state, why is he saying it is organizing against him? Why is it plotting against Mutsvangwa? What for? To what end? What does Mutsvangwa's stature amount to in the context of the power dynamics in Zimbabwe, insofar as the succession issue is concerned? I mean, apart from his war bravado and pomposity, what is Mutsvangwa's significance in ZANU-PF insofar as the succession issue is concerned? And speaking of this third force, the first time government officially admitted to the existence of a third force was in 2020, around the time Joanna Momombe, Cecilia Chimbiri and Netsai Marowa were abducted. In response to these abductions, the late SB Moyo, in his capacity as foreign minister, said that investigations would be conducted with the objective of not only arresting the perpetrators, but also exposing the involvement of a possible third force. I will need to do a detailed special report regarding this third force. But many analysts theorize that this third force is made up of high-ranking ZANU-PF officials, including leading members in the military and also leading members within the opposition. So the theory is that this third force wants to establish a new political order that doesn't involve or include ED and Chamisa. I will tell you my opinion regarding this theory when I do a detailed special report on that subject. But for now, let's stick to Christopher Mutsvangwa. Mutsvangwa took credit for the Lookist policy and even claimed that he is the one who started the ZIG currency. I don't know whether one can actually start a currency, but well, that's Mutsvangwa for you. He reminds me a lot about DJ Fantan of Chill Sport, who said, "Ndindagatanga zim danso." Zimbabwe. The truth of the matter is that Christopher Mutsvangwa is not a team player. He wants all the glory unto himself, even when he doesn't deserve it. Many of his colleagues are actually sick and tired of his attitude. They now see him as an anachronism. It's only a matter of time before he loses that post of a spokesperson in ZANU-PF. He is not a communicator. He does more damage than good for his party every time he opens his mouth. I don't even know how he became an ambassador to China, because ambassadors are taught diplomacy. What is diplomacy? Diplomacy is the art of dealing with people in a sensitive and tactful way, knowing what to say and, most importantly, how to say it. A spokesperson of a political party is the first ambassador of that party. If you are a spokesperson, you are the image and voice of that party. The job of a spokesperson requires that you arrest your personal feelings. You don't speak in your personal capacity. When you speak, it's not you speaking, it's the party speaking. So, when you say silly things, those silly things are attributed to your party. Yes, Christopher Mutsvangwa is a good orator. A very good orator. A very, very good orator. But he is not a spokesperson. He is way too invested emotionally, and that always clouds his judgment, often bringing the name of his party into disrepute. Not that the name of his party has any good repute, but well, here we are. Thanks to Mr. John Rambo, we now know that there is trouble in paradise. We may not know the extent of that trouble, but we know that there are cracks, fissures. Well, whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you with all the details without fear or favor. Because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.